Bro, it's honestly amazing, man. Coming back to Christ as a backslider, it's not amazing in the sense of it being easy at all, because there's a lot of times where, like, I knew the glory and the powerful transformation and grace of God. And we always hear these scriptures talking about, as a dog returns to its vomit, so does a fool return to his sin. We hear about the demons that got cleansed out. We hear about all these things in the Bible that happened to people that backslide, the judgment upon Israel for backsliding, so there's a lot of condemnation that stigmas around backsliding. Not saying that it's not a condemnable offense, but there's a lot of condemnation that circles it, that isn't of God. One of the big things that came to me when it came to backsliding, and one of the most powerful things that God did to me to heal me of backsliding, is when I was in church, I was evangelizing. I was set free from drugs, from alcohol, from demonic possession, from mental insanity. I was hearing voices. If it wasn't for Christ, I would be dead today. Like, there's no way I would be alive being the person that I once was. Like, I was completely lost and out of my right mind. Like the dude at the tombs with the Legion of Demons, that was me. And I got saved powerfully, but little things in my life started to kind of like tick at me, till, like, it was like a snowball, man. I roll a little snowball down the hill, and then it starts off as a little snowball. Next thing you know, you got this big old avalanche coming down at you. And that's exactly what happened, you know. So after trying to serve God and then failing, doing things I knew I wasn't supposed to do, and then trying to renounce those things and get back on the right track, doing good for some time, falling back, then renouncing it again and doing it again, then trying to renounce it and fight it again and doing it again. And it seemed every time I tried, it was easier for me to fall the next time after that. And it was like a vicious downward cycle. And like us as men, we have pride in us and ego, and that can be used in the glory of God, but it can also be used by condemnation. It's like men don't want to be like conquered. Men don't want to be conquered by sin. Men don't want to be conquered by failure, and especially don't want to be kept down by failure. It's like, especially in church, when you're in ministry and held to a high standard and you slip up and now you're not in ministry because, that in itself, when it happens repetitively, really can discourage and dishearten you. And so that's what began to happen in my life and began to happen in me, to the point where I just said, okay. And I just kind of gave up on the things of God. I was in church one day, and I told myself in church, I said, okay, I'm not going to come to morning or night service. I was in the morning service or something. I'm like, I'm not going to come to night service, and I'll see if anybody reaches out to me. If nobody reaches out to me, then I give up. Night service came around, nobody reached out to me. And I extended it for a month. I said, okay, if nobody reaches out to me for a month, I give up. And it happened that way, And that was a tactic from hell, man, honestly, to discourage me from going to the church and making me feel like nobody cared for me, because it wasn't truly them that didn't care, but it was me that was drifting away and doing things that, weren't right, and just slowly departing from them, And so with all that being said, man, I started to go down my own path. I started to run my business. It was very successful. The first year I made probably like $100,000. A lot of things were happening. I started buying new stuff, new cars, new this, new that. And I started feeling really good about myself, I started bodybuilding, and I got into taking a lot of supplements, and I got really big, really fast, and really strong. And so with my business growing, my physique growing, the gym I was going to at the time, I was like the biggest dude in there. A lot of people looked up to me, admired me, asked me what my regimen was. So I felt like, okay, life is pretty good. And so then soon after I got into MMA, man, this is awesome. And I was always like making these type of videos and post them as my story and just vlogging my life about my day at work. I made $600 today, $700 today. I trained in the gym for 3 hours and I did jiu-jitsu for 2, and just trying to encourage and uplift people, And even though I was a sinner, even though I wasn't preaching the love of God, there still was a calling and anointing on my life, because I would have people watch my stories and tell me, man, you're a really good speaker. Man, you inspired me to start my own business. Like 5 people started a business because of me. Just motivating on why I run my business and how liberating it is. One guy told me he was about to go off the deep end. He was about to kill himself, and all he could do was hear my voice in his head yelling at him. And I always felt like when I would get messages like this, like, dude, this is my calling. That's what would be in my heart when I would see stuff like that. It's like, this is my calling. I love this. And I would make a video in that regard. But it was more in the sense of physicality rather than everlasting life and Christianity, I'll make a video about if I got the opportunity to watch one guy's life change because of my impact, it would make my whole life worth it. And was sincere from the bottom of my heart. So blinded by sin, I didn't realize, like, man, this is God's calling on my life. The gifts of God are without repentance. So I remember there was a lot of times where God would speak something to me. And I would know it was the voice of God, and I would a lot of times just not listen to it, A lot of times I would just ignore it because I've been down that road. I've tried and I've failed so many times, and I'm just not ready to fail again and make myself look stupid. That's a big thing with backsliders, man. You're just tired of looking stupid. Always trying and failing, trying and failing, trying and failing. But Jesus is faithful, man. He leaves the 99 to come find us. He hunts us down. We don't hunt him down. We don't hold him down. He holds us down. He hunts us down, And I didn't realize it, man. There was one distinctive time in my life that God spoke to me, and it freaked me out badly. I was in a dental office. I was working as a dental assistant. The dentist was in front of me, drilling in a patient's mouth. I'm suctioning all the water out. And I'm just not even thinking about really anything, just food or whatever, nothing. And out of nowhere, it almost flew out of me. I was going to say, Dr. Garber, don't kill yourself. And I was like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why would I almost say that? And I'm like, dude, that was weird. And then I ministered to after we were done with the patient, so I don't really feel too guilty because I just didn't understand what was happening. But a couple months later, bro, on December 25th, 2018, I think it was, she killed herself on Christmas. Her husband died. She never had kids. She pursued a career. She had a lot of money, and just the emptiness. She ended up killing herself. And so I've learned to be more sensitive to that still small voice when it speaks to me to do something, so I don't want to get too off track with talking about stuff like that, but there would be times where, like, I was in my sin and I'm doing my thing and I'm like enjoying it and everything, and I'm not even thinking about God. And then, like a click of a button, I would snap out of it. And I would be like, whoa, what am I doing? And I would get this strong impulse to text my wife. I was in a club at this time. And I got this strong impulse to text my wife while being in that club around all this stuff that God set me free from. that I shouldn't be around. And I felt God put it in my heart to text her, thank you for praying for me. And I did. And she freaked out. She said, no freaking way. I literally said amen and my phone bing. And she said, I was so discouraged that you're at the club. I was so discouraged. And I was just praying for you. And that was a definitive moment for me because still I was rebellious, but I knew that God was still looking out for me, you know. And as time goes on, me and my wife always getting in and out of fights, separation, this, that. A lot of things have happened. And this year I got arrested 3 times. Freaking 5 felonies I have, a misdemeanor, 2 misdemeanors. 6 charges altogether this year. The wages of sin is death, man. Anyways, so I got 2 felonies between a domestic violence case between me and my wife, and I wasn't even near God, but little did I know this was God's way of setting up his work to be done. So one night, I'm just going about my business, getting out of jiu-jitsu, doing my regular routine, and I lay my head down to go to sleep, and I just feel the presence of God come down upon me out of nowhere. And I start bawling my eyes out. And I start crying to God, and I just start saying, God, I'm sorry for falling away. I'm sorry for knowing who you were, but still deliberately turning away from you, God. I ask you, God, that you please would be patient with me and forgive me, God. I don't know how to change, God. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to change. Every time I try to change, God, it never works, And, I went to sleep that night. The next morning, I got arrested. 2 felony charges. Me and my wife separated for like 4 months. And during that separation for 4 months, I started to go down a worse rabbit hole. I bought an AR-15, got arrested with it, got 3 felony charges with it. Started to dabble in drugs, started to dabble in witchcraft, started to dabble in stuff. And it was honestly a season of open fire is what I can see from it now. It was like a lot of doors I was widely opening that were closed. It's like I remember I did this hallucinogenic with a couple of friends and took it, and it was honestly like an amazing feeling. But a couple days after I took it, because you start hallucinating, it's called DMT. It's supposed to be the hormone that your brain releases when you die. So it's like an experience with death that you have. And so I took this stuff, and I just remember like I fell asleep and I was snoring, and like I felt like I was dead, and I was okay with being dead, and I was seeing all this different stuff, and I woke up out of it all at once. And I remember I felt good after that. I was like, man, that was amazing. I felt strong. I felt like I can beat up anybody, Like I was training MMA. I felt like I can whoop anybody, I felt powerful. Like I conquered death. That's how I felt. I conquered death. And a couple nights later, maybe 2-3 nights later, I had a dream where I was with those same groups of friends. And we all took turns summoning the devil. And I remember it was my turn, and so we did this little like ritual. And close your eyes, okay, now turn around. And I turned, and I looked, and I seen the devil, and he was just a regular man. And he put his finger on my lips and turned around, walked away, and disappeared. And I woke up right after that. And it was all in the bedroom that I was sleeping in that I seen all this happening in. And it was pretty clear cut what it meant to me. It was like, you got a taste of the devil, and that's exactly what had happened. So like a lot of stuff started to transpire, and I started to just become more and more cold, and started doing worse stuff like stealing from people, like wanting to rob people. I had it set out in my mind. I was gonna kill this one guy. Like I started like, one thing I notice about the devil, man, especially with Christians when they get saved, is the devil plays for keeps. And not so much that you go to hell, but that's the ultimate tactic, but so much so that you're scarred for life. You know? It's like, I know Christian women that struggled with wanting to have an abortion. And can she be forgiven of that? Yes. But that's a scar. You know? The devil wants to do things in your life that, okay, you might not ultimately die from this, but you're going to be permanently scarred or disfigured from this, you know? And that's what that was. Those temptations to like go kill this guy, to go do this, to go do that. It was, you know, buy guns, do this. It was attempts from the devil to leave me scarred and broken and bruised, you know? And little did I know it at the time because I was blind. But I started feeling emptiness and brokenness and hurt and just despair in my soul. I remember a grievous pain in my soul. And it was hurting. And I tried training. I tried doing the things I would do. And it would just make it worse. And I started, you know, hitting up a couple of my friends. And they didn't have the answers I was looking for, man. They had their own issues going on, you know. And they seem hopeless themselves. And so I started to realize, man, I need friends of God. I need friends of God. I need accountability. I need help. I can't change on my own. And so that was my heart's prayer for a long time, is God, I want just one friend of God that will help me and stand in the way, stand in the gap, God, for when I'm weak, you know? And slowly, the desires of my heart started to change. It wasn't like overnight I was just radically, miraculously back to where I was, you know. It's just like the gym, bro. We go to the gym, we get super buff, and then we leave for 2 years. We don't come back super buff. We come back a baby. Maybe we're benching 225, we come back benching 85, you know? It's like, that's the same thing with Christianity, man. But we can mature faster because we knew the truth. But the prayer of my heart started to change, and the desires of my heart started to change, but it was a season of grievous pain, and it was spiritual. It was in my soul, you know? And it's just like a lot that I had gone through, man. It was a lot of revelation, a lot of things that I had to endure, and the power of God came down upon me multiple times during this.